If you stand here for just a moment, before the sun fully rises, before the heat turns the air into something you feel deep in your lungs rather than gently on your skin, it is easy to believe that this place is quiet, almost forgiving. But that belief dissolves within seconds, because as the first light spills across the cracked ground, you realize you are standing in one of the most unforgiving places humans have ever chosen to call home, the Danakil Depression, a land that feels unfinished, as if the earth itself paused mid-creation, where salt replaces soil, where water is precious beyond explanation, where colors burn instead of bloom, and where survival is not an extraordinary achievement, but an ordinary routine repeated every single day without applause or recognition. Because here life does not announce itself with comfort or ease. It simply continues, slowly, deliberately, stubbornly, as families wake before dawn, not because they enjoy the early hours, but because they must, knowing that every minute of cool air is a gift, knowing that the sun will soon dominate the sky with a force that reshapes every decision they make, from when to walk to when to rest, from how much water to drink to how long a child can play outside before being called back into shade. And in these early hours, the land almost feels calm, the horizon stretching endlessly, the ground shimmering faintly, as if it remembers the fire that will soon return, and people move with a practiced efficiency that comes not from fear, but from understanding. The kind of understanding passed down quietly, learned not in classrooms or from manuals, but by watching parents and grandparents navigate a world where mistakes are costly and experience is everything, where water is never assumed and shade is never wasted, where animals are checked before people eat and tools are prepared before conversations begin. Because here survival is woven into the smallest habits, the tiniest decisions, the pauses between movements. And yet, for all its reputation as one of the harshest environments on Earth, this is not a place of chaos or desperation. It is a place of order, of rhythm, of routines shaped by centuries of adaptation, where the heat is not an enemy to be fought, but a fact to be respected, a force to be negotiated with rather than challenged. And as the sun climbs higher, the air thickens, the ground brightens into blinding whites and yellows, the light reflecting so fiercely that it feels like the land itself is staring back at you, and work begins to slow. Not because people are lazy, but because they understand something outsiders often don't. That endurance here is not about pushing harder or lasting longer, but about knowing when to stop, knowing when to wait, knowing when to move and when to remain still. And so salt is cut from the earth by hand, block by block, a practice older than modern borders, older than maps, older than the idea that this place should be avoided, the rhythm of metal against stone echoing across the flats as animals stand patiently nearby, loaded carefully for journeys that will cross distances most people would never attempt on foot, journeys made not for adventure or storytelling, but for livelihood, because this land, as unforgiving as it seems, provides just enough for those who understand it, and that understanding is the true currency here, far more valuable than money, far more reliable than promises of modern comfort. And as the day grows hotter, the landscape begins to feel unreal. Sulfur vents releasing sharp scents into the air, mineral pools glowing in impossible colors, greens and reds and golds that look painted onto the earth rather than born from it. And the heat presses down with a weight that makes even standing still feel like effort. A reminder that here the environment sets the rules, not clocks, not schedules, not productivity charts, not modern expectations. And when the sun reaches its highest point, the world seems to pause, movement slowing to a near standstill, conversations dropping into silence, shadows shrinking until they almost disappear, not because life has stopped, but because it has learned to wait. Because here rest is not weakness, but strategy. Patience is not laziness, but intelligence. And in these hours, people sit close to shade, share water carefully, listen more than they speak, letting the land dictate the pace, letting time stretch in ways that feel unfamiliar to those used to constant motion. And if this story is already surprising you, if you're sitting there thinking, you never imagined people could live like this, go ahead and tap the like button right now. It won't lower the temperature here or bring shade to the salt flats, but it really does help this story reach more people who think the world ends at comfortable places. And if you want to keep traveling to corners of the planet that don't make it into glossy brochures, hit subscribe and ring the bell so YouTube actually tells you when the next journey drops. Because out here, notifications are survival tools, and on YouTube, they're about as close as we get. And back on the ground, children grow up here not thinking of their home as extreme, but as normal. Learning early how to walk barefoot across hot ground without panic, how to read the wind by instinct, how to sense when the heat has crossed from manageable to dangerous, just by the way the air feels against their face. Learning that life is not about escaping difficulty, but about understanding it, adapting to it, living alongside it. And childhood here carries a seriousness that comes early, but it also carries freedom. Wide open horizons, nights under stars brighter than most people ever see, laughter echoing in spaces where sound travels far, and when outsiders ask the question that always comes, why stay? Why raise families here? Why not leave for somewhere easier? The answers are never simple, because leaving is not just a physical act, it is an emotional one, a cultural one, a rupture that severs people from land that holds their history, their ancestors, their stories, from graves that mark belonging, from paths that carry memory, from a way of life that cannot simply be packed into a bag and carried elsewhere. And so many stay not because they are trapped, but because this place is home in a way comfort cannot replace. Because here, identity is tied to survival, dignity is tied to endurance, and belonging is tied to land that does not bend easily to outsiders. And as afternoon stretches on, the heat becomes something you measure by instinct rather than numbers, by how quickly breath dries in your mouth, by how the ground radiates warmth long after the sun moves, by how silence grows heavier when energy must be conserved and people continue to adjust, moving less, speaking softer, conserving energy the way others conserve money. Because in a place like this, everything has value, every movement costs something, and every decision matters. And when the sun finally begins its descent, something remarkable happens. The land loosens its grip. The air becomes just breathable enough to feel relief. Shoulders relax, movement returns. The harsh whites and yellows soften into warm tones. Mineral pools glow instead of burn, steam rising gently from the earth, as if the land itself is exhaling after a long day of holding heat. And life returns to motion in subtle ways. Animals shifting their weight, children stepping back outside, fires crackling to life, meals prepared slowly, deliberately, stories exchanged not about danger or hardship, but about family, memory, humor, and the small moments that make up a life. Moments that look surprisingly familiar, no matter where you are in the world. Moments that remind you that joy does not require comfort, only connection. And it is here, in this contrast between harshness and humanity, that the true story of this place reveals itself. Not as a spectacle of suffering designed to shock outsiders, but as a testament to quiet resilience. Because resilience here does not announce itself. It does not demand applause. It does not wear labels like bravery or heroism. It exists in the way parents plan their days around their children's safety, in the way elders speak of change with calm acceptance rather than fear, in the way stories are passed down at night, blending lessons with memory, teaching the next generation not just how to survive, but how to belong. And the night itself becomes a character in this story, cooler, gentler, revealing a sky so full of stars it feels almost unreal. A reminder of how small human life is and how determined it can be at the same time. And in these hours, the land feels almost kind, allowing rest, allowing reflection, allowing people to prepare for another day that will demand everything again. And in the darkness, there is laughter, there is silence, there is sleep that comes quickly after long days shaped by sun and heat. And as night deepens and the ground releases the warmth it stored all day, there is a quiet understanding shared by everyone here that morning will come again, that the cycle will repeat, that survival in this place is not a single dramatic act, but a lifetime of small choices made correctly, over and over again. Choices that favor patience over force, awareness over speed, respect over resistance. And as this journey stretches toward its end, as you carry these images with you, the cracked earth, the blinding light, the glowing minerals, the early mornings and long silences, the laughter that returns when the heat finally loosens its grip, the children who treat this land not as punishment, but as home, the elders who measure time not in years, but in seasons and changes they have witnessed, the workers whose labor follows rhythms older than history books, it becomes clear that the harshest places on earth do not simply test the human body. They strip life down to its essentials, forcing clarity about what matters and what does not. And if this story changed the way you think about survival, if it made you respect the quiet strength of people who live where most of us never could, do me a favor and hit like, subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss the next story. Because I promise the next place we go might be easier on the body, but it will still challenge the way you see the world. And besides, the bell notification won't wake you before sunrise or make you walk across salt flats. It will just remind you that the planet is far bigger, tougher, and more beautiful than we're often told. Because even here, at what feels like the edge of the earth, life does not merely survive. It continues quietly, deliberately, and with a dignity that asks not for pity, but for respect.